Hi kindergartners, it's Miss DB. I'm here today to read chapter 4 of Afternoon on the Amazon. So we just read chapter 3 and they arrived in the rainforest. So we're going to find out how their first adventure goes in chapter 4. And this chapter is called Millions of Them. Just hearing that, you're going to think, millions, that's a lot. What is there going to be a lot of? I'm so excited to read this chapter. But today, as we read, we're going to think about character empathy, which means how are these characters feeling? We're going to think about how does Jack feel, how does Annie feel, and we're going to see how their feelings change their adventure here in the Amazon rainforest. So let's go ahead and let's get started with chapter 4. Chapter 4, Millions of Them. Jack didn't move. He kept staring down at the forest floor. "What's wrong?" Annie called from above. Jack didn't answer. "You don't see any giant spiders, do you?" Annie said. "Well, no." Jack took a deep breath. "We have to keep going," he thought. "We have to find that special thing for Morgan." "No spiders, nothing scary," Jack called, and he started down the ladder again. Jack and Annie climbed through the understory. Think. We know that word. We know the emergent layer, the canopy layer, the understory, and the forest floor. I'm picturing them in the understory. Let's go ahead and keep reading. Finally, they stepped onto the forest floor. Only a few rays of light slanted through the gloom. The trees were very, very tall and very wide. Vines and moss were hanging everywhere. The ground was covered with dead leaves. "Before we do anything, I'd better check the book," said Jack. He pulled out the rainforest book. He found a picture of the dark world under the treetops. He read, "In the rainforest, many living creatures blend in with their surroundings. This is called," what is it, friends? It's called camouflage. You guys know that word, when they blend in with their surroundings. "Oh man," said Jack. He closed the book and looked around. "There's tons of creatures down here. We just can't see them." "Really?" whispered Annie. She and Jack peered around the quiet forest. Jack felt unseen eyes watching them. "Let's hurry and find the special thing," whispered Annie. "How will we know when we find it?" Jack said. "I think we'll just know," said Annie. She headed off through the gloom. Jack followed. They crept between the huge trees and past hanging vines. Annie stopped. "Wait, what's that?" "What's what?" "Listen, that weird sound." Let's stop and think for a minute. How do you think the characters are feeling right now? How do you think Jack and Annie are feeling? They're feeling a little bit nervous, is what I think. I think they feel nervous. Annie's whispering. They're peering around all of the trees. They feel like unseen eyes are watching them, which means like there's eyes watching them that they can't even see because they're camouflaging. So I think that Jack and Annie feel a little bit scared, but I'm going to keep thinking about how they're feeling as we read the rest of the chapter. Jack listened. He heard a crackling sound. It sounded like a person walking over leaves. Jack looked around. He didn't see anyone, but the sound got louder. Was it an animal? A giant bug? One that has never been named? Just then, the silent forest came alive. Birds took off in the air. Frogs hopped over the leaves. Lizards ran up the tree trunks. The weird noise grew louder and louder. "Maybe the book explains it," said Jack. He opened the book. He found a picture of different animals running together. He read, "When animals hear a crackling sound, they flee in panic. The sound means that 30 million flesh-eating army ants are marching through the dead leaves." Oh my goodness. Let's think as we look at this picture together. So we can see Jack and Annie. It looks like they're in panic. So if I'm thinking about how my characters feel, I'm looking at their faces, and I feel like they look a little scared. I can look at their faces, also can think about what the author said. They're yelling, they're starting to get really nervous, they're hearing all these sounds, the animals are fleeing, they're running quickly. And we just read that they're running quickly because there's 30 million flesh-eating ants. Oh my goodness. Go ahead and read. It's army ants, cried Jack. Millions of them. Where? Cried Annie. Jack and Annie looked around wildly. There, Annie pointed. She's pointing. Can't really see the ants yet. Army ants, millions and millions of them, were marching over the leaves. Run to the tree house, cried Annie. Where is it? Said Jack, whirling around. All the ropes and trees looked the same. Where was the rope ladder? Just run, cried Annie. Jack and Annie took off. They ran over the dead leaves. They ran between tree trunks. They ran past the hanging vines and mosses. They climbed over thick roots. Jack saw a clearing ahead. It was filled with sunlight. That way, he cried. Jack and Annie hurried toward the light. They pushed their way through the bushes. They burst into the bank of a river. They stared at the slow-moving brown water. I'm going to think, we've been visualizing these chapters. In this chapter, they're really giving a lot of details that can help me visualize the story. They stared at the slow-moving brown water. I'm picturing Jack and Annie standing there on a river bank. The water's brown and murky, and it's moving slow. In the Amazon rainforest, we learned that there's lots of rivers. That's what I'm picturing right now. Let's see what's going to happen. Do you think the ants will come this way? Annie said, panting. I don't know, said Jack, but if we made a few feet into the river, we're safe. The ants won't go in the water. Come on. Look, said Annie. She pointed to a big log rocking at the edge of the river. The inside of the log was dug out. It looks like a canoe, said Jack. He listened to the crackling sound in the distance. Let's get in it, quick. Jack shoved the book into his backpack. Then he and Annie carefully climbed into the dug-out log. Annie leaned out of it. She pushed away from the bank with her hands. Wait, said Jack. We don't have paddles. Oops, said Annie. The canoe started, moving slowly down the muddy river. We can get our thinking voice on, and we'll think about how these characters are feeling right now. How are Jack and Annie feeling? Right at the very end, they realize they're in a boat with no paddles. So it looks like they might just be floating down the river. We can predict that in the next chapter. But wow, they felt a lot of different feelings in this chapter today. Nervous, scared, they're running quickly, they're feeling tired. This was just such an exciting chapter. And for a story card today, this is a picture I drew. We see the river, the ants are coming close, but Jack had the idea that if we're in the water, we'll be safe from the ants. So Jack and Annie got on a little canoe that they found, and they're just gonna float on down the river. You can see the trees in the back with some vines hanging. This is a really good story card. You can really see, oh, and we can even look at their faces. Look at Jack and Annie's faces. They're like this. Like they're feeling a little bit scared. Wow, what just happened? Well, thank you so much, friends, for reading chapter 4 with me.